Welcome to Coach Nick's Purposefully Fit podcast. Coach Nick is here to inspire, motivate, and encourage you on your journey toward being purposefully fit. Be sure to visit our website at www.iamnicke.com. That's www.iamnicke.com. Get ready to be purposefully fit with Coach Nick.
Hey y'all, hey, it's your favorite coach, Coach Nick E. And we are back talking about resist the projection. Last week, I talked about how we have to safeguard ourselves from people projecting their complaining spirits onto us. And went a step further to say that also applies to us as well. We need to be intentional about examining what we are projecting onto other people and ask ourselves, are we projecting a whole lot of nagging complaints, or are we projecting the goodness of the Lord? Now listen, y'all, I'm not saying that every day will be sunshine, rainbows, and sprinkles. We know they weren't. And I'm also aware that there are going to be days where you're just not going to be satisfied with how things are working out. And that's okay. And truth be told, it's necessary. However, be sure you check your temperament and make sure you aren't projecting all of your isms and schisms on everybody, okay? Now today, we continue the discussion on resist the projection past the fear. Now, growing up, my mother has always been terrified of dogs and swimming, y'all. We would see a dog and she would shriek at the sight. And I recall my sister and I would say, "Ma, it's just a puppy." And her famous reply, always, "It has teeth, doesn't it?" Now, this was to allude to the fact that no matter how big or small the dog was, it had teeth, therefore it could bite you. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know where this fear came from. Perhaps she was chased by a dog. Maybe she was bit by a dog. However, as I saw her reaction and heard her consistent response, I began unconsciously responding in a similar manner as a child. Now, let's go to swimming. It's not a secret that a lot of Black and brown people have had a fear of water, so swimming was not necessarily a priority nor a desire compared to other cultural backgrounds. In our household, it was no different. However, while my mother expressed her fear and apprehension when we would rush to the ocean or put our heads under the water, my dad, God rest his soul, would grab a boogie board and join us, and we would ride the waves in the ocean. Growing up, I lived in a household where fear was projected by one parent in certain cases, while faith was projected by another. Do you have any similar experiences in your life? Have you taken on unconsciously the patterns, behaviors, and beliefs of others because they projected on you unintentionally? I'm going to let you think about that for a moment. So what in the world is fear? Now, some people use an acronym saying that fear is false evidences appearing real. These are things that don't exist. However, we have created this narrative that is filled with chaos and panic, and it feels real to us. My mother may have never seen a dog actually chase and bite someone, but somewhere along the lines, there was a false evidence that appeared real to her, and it created this projection on her life that all dogs, were dangerous, and subsequently, she began projecting the same image of fear onto us. So the Webster Dictionary defines fear as an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. Do y'all hear that? This is a strong emotion that anticipates. It is waiting. It is chilling on the sidelines, waiting on something unpleasant to happen, and it has no evidence. Fear is merely aware of the potential of danger and then begins manifesting in our bodies as a strong emotion that is often negative. Woo! Y'all gotta walk with me for a moment. When we see on the news that there is a certain demographic connected to dangerous behavior, we now have a sense of awareness. Now, this awareness is not always accurate depending on the source. However, the news has projected information that now projects on us, and we use this to gauge the prospect. I said the prospect of danger, which ultimately dictates our response. So now, when we anticipate coming into contact with said demographic, we immediately experience an unpleasant, strong emotion. And dare we actually see the particular grouping of individuals, we grow to a heightened state of panic based on what was projected onto us. Can y'all say past the fear? Let's say that again. Past the fear. Now, we have to resist the projection and pass the fear. Now, to pass means to go away from or transition from oneself to another. So let me break this down, because I do not want you to think you are crazy and that fear is not real. Fear is real. But I got some great news for you. Fear does not come from God. I repeat, fear is not from God. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind." So understand that if fear doesn't come from God, it's a tactic of the enemy, aka Satan. Anytime something can infuse a strong, unpleasant emotion merely at the thought of something happen, even if it's a false perception, it can't be kingdom, y'all. Like real talk. Now, as I mentioned, fear is real. Otherwise, we wouldn't be told countless times in scripture to fear not. We also wouldn't be made aware of what fear wasn't if it did not exist. Like, God made a point to let us know that fear didn't come from him, and also reminded us and encouraged us to fear not. So this podcast is not to diminish fear or its existence. However, to urge you to resist the projection of it and to stop projecting it onto other people as well. And then we know that fear is powerful, y'all. That's why God gave us 3 things, not 1, not 2, but 3 things: power, love, and a sound mind to combat fear. So how do you pass the fear? And I do mean pass the fear not to your children. Don't pass it to your neighbors, your husband, your wife, your coworkers. I ain't talking about giving it to them, y'all. Like, let's stop. How you pass the fear and you move away from fear or transfer fear is by giving it to God. You got to stop carrying the false evidence of other people. When we give our fear to God, 1 John 4:18 says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear." For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. God is love, and the scripture is telling us that there is no fear in God, but God casts out fear. When you walk around in fear, you are truly punishing yourself, because every time you come in contact with or even think about who you may come in contact with and you begin being fearful, you physiologically begin to respond. Stay with me. Your heart rate starts increasing. Maybe you start sweating. Maybe you start shaking. Your body begins releasing that hormone, that stress hormone, y'all, that contributes to weight gain. Oh yeah. Fear leads to other things. Emotionally and mentally, you feel tormented by that thing you fear. Let's go back to those dogs. Anytime someone that may be afraid of a dog hears a bark, they begin responding mentally, emotionally, and physically. I think about how tormented my mom must feel when she comes in contact with a dog. Think about one thing you are afraid of. How does it make you feel? A little queasy, uneasy, nervous? Well, if you don't like how you feel when you're afraid, why do you insist on projecting that same feeling onto others? More importantly, why do you allow others to pass their fear onto you? I know, it's a lot. Let's chew on that for a minute. That's why we got to resist the projection and pass the fear to God. so that you can passionately pursue your purpose. When you walk in fear versus faith, you actually can't function to your full potential. You won't go where you're called to go because you have allowed someone else's fear of large crowds to become your fear. You won't travel to new territories and possess the land that God created and carved out for you and actually prepared you for because you have accepted someone else's fear about going to unknown places, and the list goes on. I urge you, don't let fear be your God. Let faith fuel you. Pass the fear to God and stop projecting your fear onto others, and stop accepting the projection that other people try to place on you. Let's pass the fear. God bless. I'm out.
You have been listening to the Purposefully Fit podcast with Coach Nick. Visit her on the web at www.iamnicke.com. Spread the word to help others get purposefully fit by subscribing to this podcast. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Purposefully Fit podcast with Coach Nick.